Very intense around this part of northeastern Ukraine. During yesterday evening and already this morning, we can hear the booms of the explosions slightly further north and south from where we are, the front line perhaps 20 or 30 kilometers from where we are. It's hard to assess, though, exactly where that front line is because it's effectively moving every few days. The battle now is really going from village to village. It is true, though, that Ukrainian forces are making relatively steady progress, at least in this part of the country. They have been able to push Russian forces back from the frontiers of Kharkiv city itself further into the oblast. But that doesn't mean that Russian forces are no longer able to attack this city and to kill civilians here. It was only yesterday at about 11 o'clock in the morning that we heard word that a cultural centre that was also used to store medical equipment had been struck and that 2 people there were killed. Local authorities here saying there was absolutely no indication of any kind of military hardware in that building. And Alison, you spoke about investigations into war crimes a bit earlier on, and indiscriminate targeting of civilian areas is something that is considered a war crime under international law. But of course, it's very difficult to prove because Russian forces can always say they were in fact trying to target another building and their missile misfired, or indeed that there were soldiers in that building. So I think that war crimes process will be long and arduous, and it may take a very long time indeed to produce credible evidence coming from this part of Ukraine.
And Nadia, despite that ongoing shelling from Russia, this does seem to be Ukraine's fastest advance since they took back the area around Kyiv. What has morale been like among the soldiers?
I think morale, it is pretty good, and I think that's something that many analysts underestimated at the beginning of this war. Yes, Russia has a far superior firepower, air power to Ukraine, but really Ukrainians want to defend their territory. And when we were traveling around the suburbs and some of the villages around this city that Ukrainian forces have really retaken, you can feel that momentum and that energy. Even here in the city, when air raid sirens do ring out several times a day, there is this real sense here that life must go on. A cafe opening in the centre of the city that we visited, people there telling us we come here to just try and forget about the war, have a good time, see our friends, and that they want to focus less on what is happening on the front line. Now, another interesting issue, I think, when it comes to the sort of morale and the response of the Ukrainian people here in Kharkiv is this is a city that is very close to the Russian border, but there's been a real sort of de-Russification going on here in the past few weeks. Particularly, there's a move here underway by the city council to change street signs and change the names of major areas. So, for example, Moscow Avenue that runs through the centre of the city is now to be renamed the Avenue of the Heroes of Kharkiv. So that's sort of an indication of the way that people here are feeling about this war on Ukraine and the pride that they feel in their city and in their soldiers.